happening with whatever we're trying today. I'm excited. This is open animation. This is the weird trials of whatever open animation is. Again, we're just a learning community, trying to learn from each other, trying to make animation education more accessible. I think that what I'm really excited about, one of the things with open animation, like the reason for starting open animation, is this idea of like, hey, we all kind of have artistic secrets that are specific to us, things that we've learned, things that like, oh my gosh, this thing actually really helps me, but it might not help you, but things that are specific to us. And today is a day where we're breaking down those barriers. I'm gonna ask the questions that I've always kind of wanted to ask, of just getting to the heart of those things that I think we all kind of keep secret to ourselves, our art secrets, our life secrets. So this is Share Your Secrets. It's Share Your Secrets. This is the first one, so we don't fully know what we're doing at all.
Yeah, we're just winging it.
We're winging it. This is kind of an interview, game show, Twitch, podcast. It's nonsense. It's just a bunch of buzzwords that mean nothing. But I'm excited for it. I think that the real fun of this is going to be, we're not talking about animation industry stuff necessarily. We're not talking about just kind of like how to get the job. We're more so just talking about what it's like to be a student, what it's like to just be a lifelong learner in this weird art world, animation world, life world. Everybody that we interview in terms of the Share Your Secrets, everybody's conversation is going to be super different. Everybody's secrets are going to be different. But I'm excited to just find out what secrets people are hiding. Maybe there's a secret to drawing a hand. Maybe there's a secret to making someone cry.
All I can say is it does get weirder over time. Like, you think school's weird? I think afterwards it just things get a little weird.
It's just gonna get weirder. And that's the voice of God speaking, so...
it's gonna get weirder.
It's gonna get weirder. So that's what Share Your Secrets is. On that note, introducing the man himself, the first guest of Share Your Secrets, and thank you so much for doing this. It's Toniko Pantoja.
Oh, there's a lag.
There's a large lag. I'm talking with him on Zoom, and then that's getting transferred through OBS to your Twitch. That's how it works. There's probably a better way, but here we go. Toniko is an absolutely amazing, hardworking killer of an artist, animator, story artist, director, and I would say a bit of a pioneer in terms of that, like, man, you can make these dreams happen yourself. You can make worlds yourself. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tyler. As soon as like you hit me up, it's like, yeah, I would love to do a video or just a casual stream with you, because definitely you were someone that I looked up to at school, especially with all the 40-hour films that you made too.
Yeah. Toniko and I went to school together. I just remember him constantly just, it was just like, that's the hardest working person I know. And then it would be like, well, but I don't know what you're working on. And then I would see things, and it would just be like, oh, right. It's not just hard work. It's also just this beautiful thing that's being created. But yeah, Toniko, you, I think, are the perfect first guest for Share Your Secrets. You share a lot of your secrets yourself, like you share via your YouTube channel, and just kind of helping create more open animation education. I don't know, man. You are a big, beautiful part of this community. Like, you're an inspiring figure, you know?
Thanks, man.
All right, Toniko. You signed up for this, and you're the first person that's got to deal with this. let's share some secrets. Share your secrets, number 1. I am going to do this. It's a clock that's goes for an hour. We're on the timer. We're gonna steal as many life animation learning secrets out of our participant in an hour. So Toniko, you're on the clock. We've got an hour. Let's see what we can learn.
Oh my God, I feel like I've been, set up for this.
Yeah,
you set me up, Tyler. Okay,
I set you up, and I think that this is the way that this weird ship is gonna roll. But you can hear. Can you hear the click?
I can hear the click.
All right. Well, it's on. 1 hour. Let's share some secrets. First question. Give me an animation learning secret right now. Any one. Just give me a secret.
A secret animation learning?
Yeah. Not secret in the sense of like a deep dark secret about the animation industry, unless you want to expose that. But more of just like a learning secret of, give me an animation learning secret. How'd you get so good?
I mean, I don't think I'm good or that good yet, but all I can say is, I mean, just as Shia LaBeouf puts it, just do it. Because, I mean, part of that learning experience is just making projects. And you don't have to have like a certain skill for it. You just have to start. And then using that project to learn something, because there's a lot of people out there who kind of make excuses saying like, oh, I can't start this project because I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't make a short film because I don't have like skills in that. But I mean, you kind of have to, just start it. And another thing is to have a certain goal and what you want to learn out of it. So like if you wanted to get better at, learning how to animate a full character or learning how to animate like really solid drawings, like make that the priority of your projects. And, just keep also being okay with experimenting and making mistakes. A lot of people are also kind of scared about just making bad stuff, but part of making bad stuff is like gaining that mileage too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Also, I think people are saying the music is loud.
I turned it down. The music, it was a trial. I'm sorry. Stream beats and a intense conversation of knowledge don't match up. In terms of like you first, like drawing, like literally the first. I don't know. Like with artists, there is that constant thing of being the young kid who, oh, you can draw well. Was that the case for you?
Sometimes, but it was mostly because the schools I went to, there were a lot of people who already were pretty good at drawing things like anime, and anime is of course popular in Southeast Asia more so than a lot of Western animation or Western productions. So if anyone could like draw, appealing anime, they were immediately really, really good. I don't think that I was seen as like the best artist. I think I was seen more of a computer person because I used Flash a lot and I made cartoons out of Flash a lot. So they just associated that with more on the computer side rather than the artistic side.
In terms of you learning Flash, like what was the process of that? Was that just like you saw stuff online, you wanted to animate yourself? Like how and I guess like how specific, what's your relationship specifically with like telling your own stories?
Oh man, I'm just like trying to like trace back. So Newgrounds used to be really big, and I'm sure it's still pretty big. Yeah. But that's one of the reasons why I got into Flash. Before then, I was like making stupid skits out of Microsoft PowerPoint. I would draw like each storyboard panel on MS Paint and just copy and paste it to Microsoft PowerPoint, and I would like record my own voice just to play on top of it while I just like click in front of my friends because I just made it for my friends. And then for the Flash bit, I think there was a lot of like parody cartoons on video games. Yeah. So animators would get a sprite sheet collection, and what that is it's basically like assets, like the 2D assets of a character animation in a video game, and they just put it in like the sheet where you can just like crop out the green screen that it's sitting on, and you can cut those out and put it into Flash and just like animate it frame by frame. And I was really into that. I started off by making Flash sprite animations, like based off Mega Man. Like they were like Mega Man sprite sheets. So I got into that. And it was fun. Like I would just make super violent because, as a kid, it's funny when you make like super gory stuff. It's funny. You can get really creative. And then I saw other cartoons that were using Flash. Like there was a website that's dead now, but I feel like it was one of the earliest places where they were really pushing Flash to its limits. Like shockanime.com was one of them. Like if you saw the stuff that they were making back in 2000, it's like, whoa, back then where Flash had like a very, it didn't have a very popular base, and it was also very hard to show that quality of animation in such a limited file size, because back then, like I think a lot of websites had a cap like 5 megabytes per Flash file, and it was just like really amazing what a lot of these artists could do.
And then was that just because I feel like that has been the origin of so many animators right now, of just like seeing Flash cartoons, and then just like I'm gonna make that, I'm gonna learn that. And then just the like constant bit of like, oh, this is terrible, but then just kind of like getting better bit by bit.
And the appeal of Flash is that like you can make a short film or short cartoon in the comfort of your own house and your own computer. Whereas like, for me back then, when I saw an animated film, I'd be like, okay, cool, that's really cool. But it didn't really feel like I wanted to make stuff. But with Flash, for example, it's like, whoa, I could do that too if I had Flash in my own room with my Windows 98 or Windows 2000.
Right.
And like just that idea just gave it more accessible to someone who kind of like had sort of a passion for like, telling shorts and stories and, animating and stuff, but without like a whole animation studio to do that.
Yeah. Right. Okay, I need to explain this too. This is the easy round. Top 5 resources that you have found that have been helpful for you learning as a student for right now. Just stuff that you found either on the internet or whatever that's just been helpful to you.
Like nowadays?
Yeah, either now or just throughout kind of your learning experience. It could even literally be like when you were first learning Flash, just like, oh my gosh, this was the thing. But yeah, maybe specifically right now.
Right now, I mean, I feel like I'm not as active as like looking for specific resources for learning animation, because I tend to get inspirations from a lot of different things, from like history podcasts to just like normal people just like talking.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was younger, especially like maybe before college, I was just like buying every resource I could find at a bookstore. So I would buy like these books, like a concept art collection where it was a bundle of like concept artists and their work was featured in this book, and they showed the process of how they did it, like step by step. And then they would also have a CD-ROM in those books, so you could actually like open the PSD files yourself and actually see how they did it. And to me, that was like a super helpful resource. I think I got a book for 3D Studio Max that did that. Like I had this very addicted, I was very addicted to learning how to model a human head in 3D, like making it blink and talk. Because it's like I was really into that CG scene, and I wanted to become a CG person like when I was really young. And just having that was also super helpful to see like how they broke down the files and how they did it.
What was the like transition from like, hey, CG that world to I'm gonna just draw more, I'm gonna get into specifically 2D animation?
So before 2D animation, I actually wanted to be a concept artist. So from CG, so I was modeling stuff with like 3D Studio Max 6. Before that, Moray. But I think when I started seeing like the concept art scene where people were making like these gorgeous illustrations and they used Photoshop to do it, it just made that feel more accessible.
Yeah.
Like I thought, oh my God, if I learn how to do this, then maybe I could do one too. Maybe I could be a concept artist too. But in the side, I was always, animating or doing things on Flash, but I didn't really think of animation as a career choice until my 11th grade of high school.
Mm-hmm.
So animation wasn't really a big dream for me because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into animation or live action. I think live action was a thing that sounded plausible for me.
Yeah.
But definitely like there was a time where I was really just focusing on concept art stuff, but I didn't want to stay in there too long because the community that I hung out with in the concept art scene, it felt a bit incestuous.
Yeah.
Like they all just wanted to be like the next Craig Nealons or the next Feng Zhu.
Yeah.
And everyone just wanted to do like Gears of War art, and I didn't want to do that. I think if I discovered visual development and what that was, maybe I would have stayed around in that illustration side, but I kind of like the animating side of it too, because I was also into anime.
Right.
And I wanted to see if I could make like anime in Flash.
Yeah, I think that's super apparent with your work, where it's high concept in terms of this being a lived-in world, like a super livable world, and then it's beautiful animation. The question that I've got next, Tanik, it's the best art advice that you've ever gotten. Can you think of it?
The best?
Yeah, best
I mean, the single best? What if I give like 3? Because there's a lot.
3.
I mean, I feel like the one that I mentioned earlier was, keep experimenting with different things, like different art styles or different projects.
Yeah.
Break out of comfort zones. And, this is another thing that I would say is to stop worrying about finding an art style. Like, I think there is this sort of this weird fascination of like a lot of the younger artists trying to find their own art style.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like we all have it. It's just that there's not enough maturity for it if we feel that our art style isn't strong enough, because an art style is an accumulation of like, our tastes, our cultures, what we like, what we don't like, and our background, or what we find appealing, what we don't find appealing. And it's all about like that decision making too, of like what to keep and what to take out. So we all have it. It's just that like I think for people to like sort of find an art style or strengthen their art style, if they wanted to go down that route, is to just keep getting out of your comfort zones, find new inspirations, having a clear intent of what you're trying to go for, and learning how to like say, okay, this doesn't fit me, this fits me. If this doesn't fit me, or if this is something that I don't like, how do I take what's appealing from this and, make it stronger? Like, it's just like small things like that, really.
Yeah.
I mean, the other one I was just going to bring up is like, eventually find a way to streamline your process. So if you're working, you don't always have to feel lost or chaotic. Like, find a way that makes it easier to do things again and again, step by step.
Yeah, for you, that does seem kind of like a big thing, and just in terms of finding shortcuts, streamlines, workflow processes. And does that just like naturally save? How much time do you think that just saves you? I don't know.
I feel like it could save hours.
Yeah.
So in a lot of the productions I've been in animation for storyboarding, we board in Photoshop.
Yeah.
I've never had to touch Storyboard Pro, ever,
Yeah.
honestly. And the only reason why I touched Storyboard Pro was because I wanted to learn Storyboard Pro for a project. But, a lot of projects, especially in feature, they still use Photoshop. And I made a bunch of like different actions that could, auto shade stuff, auto fill stuff. I found ways to like batch process things. So I spent more time on the creative side of things rather than the laborious side where you're just like renaming files, whether you're just like, filling in mats of your storyboard, drawing characters. So just stuff like that.
That is crazy true. It's just like the one figuring out the process that works for you in your brain.
Yeah, because the stuff that people don't look, it's kind of like in animation. It's like, in-betweening. God, I hate in-betweening, but I got to do it for smooth animation. But it's like, that stuff is like, to me, laborious. It's not like I'm making creative choices in that. It's just at that point, I'm just gunning through it.
Right. Following that up, the best single bit of life advice you've got. When I say life advice, and I'm sure it's probably similar to the art. Life and art mirror each other.
Yeah. I mean, I think in this line of work, it's easy to compare yourself to other people too.
Yeah.
Especially when you have like classmates and friends who are, proceeding much more further than you in your career. And it's sort of easy to sort of compare yourself to them. Like, maybe I'm not as good as them. I felt like this all the time at CalArts for sure. When a lot of my friends were getting internships left and right for, Disney and Pixar and DreamWorks. And every time like I never got that internship, it always felt like I was behind. And that's kind of why, like, I feel like that was sort of the thing that made me work much harder during the summer,
right?
Because it's like, I gotta keep working hard to prove myself. But I think working hard, there's value to it. And if you feel like you want to push it, I think everyone should push it, then you should go for it. But one thing is to just focus on, your own growth and what you learn out of that.
Yeah.
Rather than comparing yourself to like what other people are gaining from their own experiences. Everyone's different too.
Yeah. I really wish more people just talked about, at least in school time, in terms of learning time, the general life advice. Because I definitely feel like in terms of high school, middle school, just it doesn't really prepare you actually for kind of the mental struggles of now you're focusing on maybe on one thing and the difficulty of just kind of like learning. And just the life, how do you juggle this stuff? How do you juggle the insanity of opinions, the fear, whatnot?
Yeah, I would also suggest, like, I wish I did therapy earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I think therapy is a big one, especially for people in our field.
Yeah.
And therapy is not for just people who are depressed or sad all the time.
Yeah.
And I still have like people that I know who still see therapy as a sign of weakness, which isn't true, because like sometimes, there's a conflicting thought. It's hard for you to make certain decisions, or there's something in the back of your head that you don't really know how to break down.
Right.
And then, maybe therapy is a good way to sort of like, let those thoughts out and, trying to piece things together. Like, some habits that I have right now were actually formed back when I was a kid, like a childhood. Like, right. There were elements in my childhood that happened that made me react in very similar ways to how I react nowadays. And I never knew why I reacted that way, but it does help a lot for sure.
Yeah. I asked you to send the video on YouTube that gives you the most joy. You sent this. We made Willy Wonka R-rated. What gives you so much joy of this video?
There's the kids getting killed in that video, like all the blood and guts. It's just like, those kids deserved it. No, the thing I love about Corridor Crew and their channel is that it feels like I'm in school again when I watch these, because it's just a bunch of like dudes that take an assignment. Yeah. And they all kind of spread out and do their own thing. Like one person is working on a shot for this project. So like
a seemingly innocent story.
Like they would break down like, okay, I'm going to make this fat kid explode and there's going to be blood everywhere. So how I'm doing that is with these particle effects, and I'm using a simulator and all this stuff. And it's like super, it's super inspiring, because it's like, oh my God, like that sounds, so fun that that people are like taking this assignment and having their own solutions to it. And
Right.
it's a lot of fun. It's entertaining. And you know what's great about this video too is that it happened during the lockdown, or when
cool.
people when the lockdown did start. So people were basically doing it in their own homes, and when they streamed it together, so when they streamed their final project, or when they streamed all the violent shots together, you know, they also had like a live reaction where they're all like in their own houses. And something about that is like, wow, like that could actually be a thing that I personally would want to do down the line.
Yeah, I think that like Corridor Crew and also just your stuff, it's just like get out there and make it, and making it really, really well. And just by gradually figuring out their own process, and then kind of documenting the process for other people. Like I know with Corridor, so many people have learned stuff, and same from you. And that just seems like it's the new realm of learning in some ways. It's just like, yeah, you kind of just make stuff. Do you feel like, just in terms of, I don't know, animation, learning, do you think that some things are changing just with just the amount of information that's online?
I do think just the way things are being taught, like now there's a lot more access to online education. So there's a lot of people starting their own online classes.
Right.
And, you know, for the teacher or for the animator that's teaching a class, that's actually pretty good money. But it also gives people a lot more freedom in how they'd like to teach.
Right.
Or how they'd like to teach a course. I think everyone has a different way of learning things. Like, you know, some people benefited from the 2D animation classes back at school. Some people didn't. Whereas the people that didn't really respond well to those classes learned better by seeing how people did certain challenges. Like if they were to animate an assignment, the thing I loved about like the character design classes at school is that like they just give you a prompt, like, you know, draw these characters in the Tim Burton style, and everyone would have their own solution or their own approach to how they would do it.
Ooh, okay, so here's some more direct. Here's direct. Character design advice. You only get one. Give it to the character designers of the world. What would you say?
Oh, I don't think I'm in the best. And I don't think
it doesn't matter, Toniko. You got the advice in you. You've got the secrets. Share them.
I think people focus more on the design rather than the character.
Ooh, yes. They focus too much on the design rather than who this person is, or this character is. Yeah. What do you kind of mean by that?
I think it's like people. The newer character design artists usually just focus on like how the character looks, and it fits all the right notes. Like it's appealing, it's fun, it's nice to look at, it works. But at the same time, like there isn't a lot of like character thought to it. So like it'd be nice to have more character poses, you know, very unique expressions that aren't just like generic, happy, sad, neutral. It could be like very specific to their character. Maybe they're tired all the time, or maybe they are, you know, cocky all the time. So I think definitely the character plays a huge role, because like there's a lot of like really nice character designs to look at, but I think like to make it functional as a character, I think there needs to be more emphasis on the performance side.
Yeah. Going off of that, I do immediately just want to ask the best thing in kind of like each category of like creating life-filled animation. What is it? What's that little secret sauce?
Well, you know how a lot of like people throw vague terms like add a bit more acting and golden poses and throw that out the garbage. That is probably the worst advice you can give to someone who is learning how to animate for the first time. I think the best one to think about is like, how do you make, if you're animating a character, how do you make it feel alive?
Yeah.
So this is like before you think about acting stuff, because I think the acting choices are so subjective, by the way. Like, if you showed like a certain acting choice to someone else, they'd say, "Oh, what about this acting choice?" And you know, it's not something you can always agree with. But I think like an important skill to have is like, okay, what are some things that you can highlight to make that character feel more alive? So let's say if you're animating, okay, let's say have a character breathe, or what do their eyes say, certain attitudes, like how do you show that with whatever skill you have? And then from then on, I mean, things like action choices, good poses, action lines, straight versus curves, that can come down later down the line.
Those are some good secrets being shared. Everyone's saying, good secrets.
Are they saying good secrets?
Good secrets. Let's go next round. Let's talk to student Toniko. Let's go back in time.
Oh God.
So let's we're gonna all go close our eyes and imagine, 19, 20-year-old, 21-year-old Toniko.
Yeah, I was a butterball back then.
What do you
with
mean
a lot of
all I remember is you being a strong man.
Butterball with a lot of pimples, whereas a lot of people called it freckles. Like when people drew caricatures of me and drew the pimples, it's like, oh, Toniko's freckles. No, they were freaking pimples.
Yeah. I have a drawing of me as a Gravity Falls character, and it was too scary. It had too much acne to make it to air. It was too scary.
A lot of especially at like school, we were all very brutal with each other when it came to caricatures. Like we don't hold back. Like the caricatures that we drew of each other back in school were always very goofy, or it was like, low key. I don't know if insulting is the right word,
right.
But it was like, oh, there's truth to that, and you're just highlighting that. Yeah. Whereas like a lot of caricature, they just make it look appealing. Like, oh, it's a cartoon version of yourself. But it's much more entertaining when it's like a mean caricature of you.
There's a tiny bit of truth to it. And then it stings, but you gotta smile. Nice.
You're like, okay, thanks, man.
Thank you. What's young Toniko eating? What's he snacking on?
Lots of Chips Ahoy. In the cubicle. So I'm in my cubicle eating Chips Ahoy.
Are you drinking coffee? Like are you
no.
doing that? Or is this pure water? You're an H2O boy.
Water and alcohol.
Wow. It would go I party hard. I learn harder, party harder. I don't know.
Sometimes party hard. Sometimes I use alcohol as a way to cope with things, and it's definitely not like a good habit to have. But there were times where it was like pretty nice to have, especially when you're working on a film.
Yeah.
Like you remember John Kim, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, like when we were working on our film side by side in the computer labs, I think we shared a whiskey bottle of like some Canadian whiskey. And we would just like take shots of that while working. And I think that was a pretty dope memory.
Yeah, just a nice alcohol experience. There are terrible alcohol experiences too. That's the other side.
But something that I wish I was into, that I think a lot of people were into back in my first year, was if you looked into the cubbies of a lot of those cubicles, you'd find a Nerf gun, because there was a lot of like Nerf assassin sessions in that year, and a jar of Nutella.
And Nutella, so you're eating you were going full scoops of Nutella in your mouth.
Not me, but a lot of other people in my year had.
You're sharing other people's secrets now.
Yeah,
that's the cool thing. At that time, closing your eyes, what is the thing that you're learning the most from, where you're leveling up the most because you're like, yeah, this is the reason? And that could just be you. That could just be, you know what? I leveled up because of me. I think it works both ways. Like I would say like the big one is because I took the initiative to do it. To do like school learning stuff. Was there any like specific class or any specific kind of like thing that I don't know, just like
so I would always like stay after school after class after 2D animation class, and have the teacher like look at my work and look at some other things that I've been working for, my future demo reel. And then when I didn't get an internship, I would do the 11-second club challenges.
11-second club.
Yeah, that helped a lot actually, because it's like, okay, I wanted to get better at acting and animation because I did want that um, internship like pretty badly at the time.
Yeah.
And so I would do those and I would like share it and get a lot of feedback for it. And
Yeah.
it did help a lot.
What makes like a good set of feedback, like a helpful set of critique?
I think
And yeah, just kind of like when to take it, when to not. What's your feeling?
when it doesn't really align with your goals, then it's one of those things where you can just take with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because like there's a lot of like critique and feedback that I got from my teachers that I don't necessarily agree with. And I know that my goal was to tell a certain, like let's say a short film, and I shared an animatic to a story person that has been in the industry and has been teaching.
Yeah.
And they gave some story advice that was absolutely, not bad, but it didn't fit the direction I wanted it.
Right.
So
right.
it's like, it's kind of one of those things where you kind of have to pick and choose.
Yeah.
And as for the teacher side, I think it's also for them to also kind of ask the students what they're trying to go for.
Yeah.
So that, because like I could give like feedback and it would just sound like cookie cutter stuff and it would just be what I'm familiar with. But nowadays, when I teach, I ask my students like, why do you guys want to learn, 2D animation, or
Right.
why did it?
And there are like specific differences for each person, right? Like I've noticed that definitely, where it is like those goals of, hey, what is your goal? Is it potentially getting work, or is it potentially just making something that like, right, is the thing that you dreamed of when you're a kid? Just those are like vastly different, of just like making something that's super personal to you. That is like those notes that you give depend on the goal.
And I think that's also why like teaching is also a great learning experience, because you can ask a student like, what do they want to learn? And one says, I want to learn more about timing charts that are specific to anime.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I don't know of. So I'll say something like, okay, let me research about that. Then I'll actually reach out to my friends about like timing charts and anime, and I'll talk to them. And I learned a lot of new things that I didn't know about anime timing charts, how they're so different. And now it's like, it's a learning experience. It's like, sometimes it feels like a student gave me an assignment to research on.
That's cool. So, and that's I think an awesome way of thinking about teaching too, where it's specific to each person, but that's also work that like you can do for friends, that you can do yourself, and just the individual research, just how true that kind of is of like learning. It's not just this person has all the answers. It's like, no, I gotta go find them. I gotta go find them and search for them.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's sort of if it's a pride thing, but there's some teachers who are so reluctant about, they just want to make their students animate the Disney Nine Old Men style.
Sure.
Of course, like, and we know this especially from school, like not a lot of people want to go into that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of the internet too, is that you can find those different influences in those different pockets. Because I think as a student, I did kind of cross off. The first year I crossed off the anime world in terms of it being, oh, I'm gonna really learn a lot. But that second year was you dummy. This is the most important space to learn. Okay, Toniko, we're gonna close our eyes again. You're gonna sit down, little student Toniko. All those fears inside, right? All those worries, whatever. Talk to him directly, right? I am now you, and go ahead and just give that man some advice. It could be life advice. It could be all the advice. What does that 20-year-old need?
What does that young Toniko need? This is so weird, man.
Yes. And I'm you too, and I'm gonna act like you. I'm gonna, oh. This isn't how you would act, but, oh.
Yeah, no, I'd be like, oh. I would be like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I tell him, hey man, go to therapy.
That's amazing freaking advice, because yeah, I think that the best gains that I've made in terms of just like myself, my life, and everything, yeah, has been through therapy. That's
Yeah,
very real. It's just getting your mental health kind of figured out.
and just like learning how to even balance yourself too,
Mm,
because like especially at school, working on a student film, you're spending so much hours of the time just like working nonstop on a student film. But when I come to think about it now, a lot of that stuff was just me like replaying the same sequence over and over and over again and making sure if it's right or wrong.
mhm.
But then I feel like, if I spent maybe an hour or 2 hours away just doing something else, like working out,
Yeah.
that also could have been a good mind refresher.
So it was ultimately like, hey, that animation that you kept replaying that you were like, ah, that's off. Like maybe it was good enough like 2 hours ago. Like it
Yeah.
was doing all right. Because I think that that's something that I've super learned, is the thing that you kind of played in your head as being not good enough was like, dude, it was there. It was like doing the thing that it needed to do, and then go on to the next thing. Like save yourself some mental energy.
Yeah, there was a time where I think it was the last few days of working on a student film where I would keep playing the film again and again, but because I was so sleep deprived, like it felt like the film was either playing in like slow motion or it felt too fast, and I didn't know like what was going on. Like I thought the computers were lagging, or something, but it was really just like, my lack of like sleep or rest. That's already like playing mind games on me.
Yeah, that word balance. If I were to go back to learning time, that would be the first thing to get. It's to get those foundations down of like a balanced life. I think,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, then you can actually start to learn.
And this makes me start to think about another thing that I would tell myself,
Yeah.
which is like, because I'm so focused on my own work, you kind of tend to subtract a lot of like a lot of like critical thinking in your
Hmm.
life stuff too. So in a way, it starts to make you, well, for my case, like I got a bit more egocentric.
Hmm.
So like, someone like when someone unintentionally like did something and then somehow I get really angry about it, it's like, okay, it's like I think I would tell myself to like, just have a little more faith
Yeah.
in yourself and other people too.
Yeah.
And it's not as always black and white or how you think of it. I mean, just learn how to put yourself in other people's shoes too. I think, like working 24/7 on a project by yourself is just like, I think it does build you in a cabin fever, tunnel vision. So you kind of forget to think about how other people think. You start
Hmm.
to forget a basic skill like empathy in a way.
Yeah.
So
I think that
um,
20-year-old Toniko just felt a bit of relief there. I'm saying this as thank you, Papa.
he would probably be like, I mean, knowing my mind of state back then, he would probably say like, bah, you don't know what it's like because of the egocentrism.
Right. That's something that is like just so there with being a student, right? But the time of actually researching that, or going through that yourself, it doesn't seem like there's that much emphasis that gets kind of put in that space.
It's definitely harder with social media because I think there's also I mean, if so you can fall into the trap of seeing it as a numbers game
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So like if you're so used to like getting a high amount of likes or followings, and that starts to die down, like I can only imagine, I've been a victim of this too,
Right.
but it starts to like make you think, oh, did I get, are people not responding well to me? So
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the problems I see with social media.
Yeah, I'm gonna go into this question. So this is outside of 20-year-old Toniko. This is all Toniko's. What's the funnest thing about art making, animation, maybe, just storytelling? What has given you kind of like the most joy? Maybe even like a bit of the reason why you got into it.
it's sort of similar to like those videos in Corridor Crew, but I think, the thing that I really loved watching growing up, like, how there's like a lot of animated films always had like, the making of Finding Nemo, or whatever. For some reason, I never really jived well with the ones made in America, because it always felt so superficial, and everyone's like so happy and like, we're making magic here. This is gonna be amazing. But then like if you watch the documentaries or the making ofs in Japan, like Japanese animation studios, it's super grounded. It's not as heavily orchestrated or edited. It's really just like some guy walking into like his work floor and everyone's just like hunched over working hard, and they just talk about stuff like, oh, how was your day? Oh, I have a lot of things to do. And it's like, wow, that actually seems like something that reminds me of what I do. And it makes it feel like I connect with that. Like, I don't know if you've seen Tech on King Creek, but the documentary of it, or the making of, I think it's one of my favorites, because like the director for that is American. And so there was a meeting where he was with the executives or the producers, and they were telling him like the film is in a bad state. We're not. This is what I remember. It's been a while since I watched the documentary, but they were telling him, we're far behind. We're not making time for it. We're pretty much in deep shit. And then the director just says, he just kind of like chuckles, but in Western cultures, like a chuckle like that is sort of like a sarcasm. We're going like, oh man, they're absolutely right. And then as soon as he did that, the producer's just like, this is no laughing matter. And then the camera just stays on the director going like that. And it's just like, wow. Like, I feel like in a way that was sort of relatable, and it felt more honest about the craft that we do.
So that is like definitely part of the fun, the ups and downs, the process of building this thing for you, like that's baked into the, oh no, I love this.
I think it is important to highlight the downs for sure, because that is also something that we learn a lot from. I think a lot of like the heavily edited making ofs kind of skip that part out, but I always look for that stuff, because I think it's like, I want to see how they solve this problem, or I want to see how they got through it. And that stuff is more inspiring to me than like some guy saying, here at this studios, we're always making magic, and here is the magic behind our craft. Right. And then you get this animator.
Real shit that's going down behind it. There's that Miyazaki, the NHK, like multiple part series, and the one with Goro Miyazaki that just like focuses on Goro. Brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah, it is super brutal for Goro.
Okay, so next bit. Audience questions. We're doing an audience hot round, the hot seat. And as we do that, Toniko, can you get a pen and a piece of paper? You got anything?
I think I'm far from.
All right, then no need. I'll draw you some Elmos as we go through this.
I feel like I could draw one digitally and then send it over or something.
Okay. All right, we've got some questions. What's the best part of your week?
Definitely a Friday.
Just a Friday feeling.
Just a Friday feeling, like, work is done, and you can spend the rest of the day not worrying about making a deadline for next day.
What does that feel like? What does a Friday feeling feel like?
It feels like, you're working hard for the end of that week, and it's suddenly free. It's like a school Friday.
We got advice for young storyboard artists trying to get their first job.
Trying to get their first job?
Give it.
Ooh, something that I didn't learn in school that I learned at the job is definitely focusing on the character performance. Because that's most of the notes that we got at work. Whereas, during school and, for storyboard assignments, it was mostly just like making sure the story reads and everything was clear. But I think there's a lot more emphasis in like very specific acting choices. So it almost feels like an animator's job, where they're like, maybe make this guy, think more. He's more worried. So he wouldn't be like this. He would be more taken aback. So I definitely think like, thinking about the character element is super crucial for
Yeah.
storyboarding.
Yeah, I think that is amazingly true in terms of also just reading through portfolios and stuff. Is like the first thing that stands out is actually character acting.
Yeah.
What would you tell hobbyists who want to animate who don't have a degree? You know, just the general hobbyists, like where you're not doing this for your career. Toniko, are you still animating, and how are you going about it?
Like taking up animation as a hobby.
Yeah.
I think with like, I mean, I would say like just make the try making, things that seem reasonable, things that don't seem like a lot of work, just to feel like, just to try it out, what it's like.
Right.
Because I think, no one goes into animation and says, yeah, the bouncing ball, that's where it's at. I just want to animate bouncing balls for the rest of my life, and waving flags and stuff like that. Yeah, that's where it's at. A lot of people go into animation because they want to like animate some cool fight scene, or some dance, or some fun things. And I think you should just get right into it, and then that stuff you can learn on the side if you are more interested in learning actual animation principles. Like I have a few friends that make music on the side.
Yeah.
And some of them they just take music as a hobby. They don't have a strong music background. So they just make tunes in Fruity Loops,
Yeah.
in GarageBand. They even got like a keyboard just to play some tunes. And they don't really have any formal music training, but they're still able to make some beats out of it.
Yeah. And I think that is like the right, the possibility that like we're now afforded is that you can be kind of a hobbyist at all of this stuff, but then it all kind of feeds into one. Like maybe our career in some ways is just like learning shit constantly.
I think that's exciting. Like I love to be in a state where I'm constantly learning stuff.
What do you want to learn that you haven't learned yet?
Definitely learning how to play an instrument. I did get myself a secondhand keyboard just to like, get acquainted with like learning how to listen to tone and music, because I do eventually want to learn how to make my own sick beats.
You want to make those beats. You want to make those bangers. The Toniko. If you okay, no, I'm not gonna say. How do you know when you have to step back and review your work? Like, hey, this is probably a point where I gotta step away and just let's think about this project as give it some space rather than being full force in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's as how you said it. Like you definitely have to just take a step away from being actively working on it, because sometimes we're in that work mode where we can't think of anything else but to work. But we had a teacher back at CalArts named he was the guy that sort of like was after Greg Griffith.
Yeah,
I think it was Dariush.
Yeah,
but he's a CG person, but he always gave the best like advice, even if it wasn't CG related.
Right.
So when I was working my fourth year film, like, I didn't know what kind of thing I wanted to do. So he would say like, write 40 different log lines and what feels exciting to you. Then take 3 hours away from that and then come back to it and start crossing out the things that, don't excite you as much anymore. Or because like sometimes we do need that breakaway to sort of like, refresh that emotional thinking side of it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that, where it's like taking a step away and then coming back with kind of like having a list or something to kind of look for. Smart. Yeah, go.
I mean, it's especially for work, like, sometimes I'll get a lot like feedback to revise or redo notes, and I usually just take like maybe an hour or two after the review session, because it's like some of those notes sound like a lot of work. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, redo this, redo that, or find a way to make this more readable.
Yeah.
But then, I can't, if I just like work straight away right after that session, then sometimes I tend to procrastinate or spend more time on things that don't matter. But then like if I take a, maybe a short hour break and come back to it, maybe I'll feel more refreshed in how I could do it much more
right
economically.
We are getting a lot of questions about just kind of like, one, is college worth it? Paying tuition, advice for high school animators and just kind of like job advice stuff. One, I do think that open animation or just there are those things online, but there isn't really like a definitive guide of just like, hey, do you need a degree to work in animation? And the answer is no. Like that's
You don't.
Yeah, you don't. Is college worth it? It is and it isn't, right? It is. It definitely is, and it definitely in some ways it makes things harder. It's kind of a toss up. Do you have
like if you got the tuition for colleges, I would say hell no, it's not worth it. But sure. I think college is a pretty important time in anyone's life because like it does build character. There's a lot of things that do happen in that part of your life, whether it's like forming friendships or communities.
Right.
And that's also part of human growth too. So I do think there is a value to college, and I don't think I would be where I'm at without college, not because of the animation course, but it's also because I learned more about myself and what I could fix myself down the line. So in that sense, like, I did value colleges, but I think in terms of just learning animation alone, there's workshop classes. There's like studio workshop classes, but I think it's a very different story for people who are international because there's like visa requirements. So I think for the work visa, you have to have a degree in order to qualify for a work visa. But I think, I don't know, like, I think Osong went through the O1. He didn't finish CalArts, so I think he did through the O1. But that's also.
Well, what are your feelings on just kind of like the international world of animation, of just like, there is this weird you need to be in Los Angeles or that hub, but animation is being done everywhere, and in terms of going to studios, that's super true. I don't know. Do you have kind of future predictions of where things are headed and how kind of the international animator, animation artist, creator, operates?
Yeah, so there's a lot of changes, not just in the educational side where there's more access to learning new things, but now there's tools that make it accessible, like Blender. Blender is free and it can do a lot of really cool things, and I'm learning Blender on the side now because I think there is a very strong potential future with it. But I think it's because of COVID and how a lot of people were able to work from home. I think I hope that the animation industry does spread around the world.
Yeah.
Because it can be done. You don't need to be there, especially for animation work. Like, I think when the lockdown started, there's a lot of like news articles saying that the animation industry is now booming more than ever. People are greenlighting more animation projects. So I think there is a future for it. And I think like now there's a lot more venues where there is more power to people who are creator driven. Like, I think some of the people that inspire me, of course, is, Worthy Kids, right? Yeah. So like, what he does now is, I find it super inspiring.
Yeah. And that doesn't matter what space you're in. It's just, it matters the content.
Yeah. And it's like entertaining. And, I feel like I could learn a lot just from his stuff or how he does it. I
think that like Vivzy Pops too, like that is mind blowing in terms of what that could potentially do. I don't know, just the route of making animation. It's just like that animation team is kind of from everywhere.
Yeah, so I think now also a lot of animators are definitely going to think more about the business side of things. So how do they franchise a brand or their merchandise? So
their own work, right?
Yeah, okay. Because animation by itself, it's very hard to get funding. Yeah. But if you have, like, let's say you sell toys or you sell merchandise or you sell tutorials, like those are other income venues that you can make a lot of money from so that you can fund those projects.
Right. But yeah, in that case, it might not be necessarily where you are, right? That matters, or what country.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, last audience question. Just how do you deal with like imposter syndrome? How do you deal with just the feelings of like, oh God, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think imposter syndrome is a common feeling that I get all the time.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people way better than I am that deserve, either my job or even higher. But that's not to say I want to give up my job. It's more like now I have to sort of prove that I do sort of deserve it.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that helps me, sort of get over imposter syndrome is, kind of accept the fact that you're not like the best. There's a lot of people way better than you.
Yeah.
And just this idea of being open to constantly learn new things. I think after graduating from school, I kind of had to sort of step away from looking at classical Western animation because I looked at so much of it back in school and then after school that like I would see, ones that bear resemblance to it. And I would be like, oh, that's impressive animation, but I'm not learning something out of it. So now I actively look for, things from anime because they're doing a lot of things that are, in terms of like how to work economically and smart, but really maintain high quality of work. It's like, okay, it's different. It teaches me how to look at things in a different mindset.
Yeah. Okay. I did put like a 1 minute, but I haven't. I didn't want it to interrupt the talk. That's it. Okay, we had an hour of sharing your secrets. This is sharing your secrets. But this is the last bit, Toniko. This is the last thing in share your secrets. You get the final word, man.
Keep learning and make stuff.
That's nuts. It's just that. It's just like keep learning and just make shit. And but like that is honestly the answer that I think most people are gonna come to on this. It's just like just go make stuff, have fun with it.
I think it'd be very interesting to see like people come up with their own principles too, or their own industry. That's what I want to see. Like we only know a lot about the West Coast side of animation, but it's like, man, maybe there are people like in South Africa, like having their own sort of like work floor industry there too.
Right.
And that'd be like really fun to learn. It's just like, I think there'd be a nice thing where like people do spread out and they sort of form their own little community industry.
And I do think that like, okay, goals with, and just kind of where this is all headed and maybe even where industry is headed is just like, let's break down barriers. Let's share our freaking secrets and let's all just like get kind of better, and learn from each other. Right. Because there's a lot to learn. Toniko, this has been, my mind is melted with information, and I think that this was a tight hour. We got a lot in.
It has been pretty tight.
It was tight, but you were game for it. You passed. You shared your secrets, and we are all better because of it. Thank you for sharing.
It was a very vulnerable experience, you guys. It was you saw me naked, so like. Yeah,
so about that, and I think that what is cool is that like we want to interview kind of everybody. We want to interview students who are just starting out too, and just kind of like just that everybody's answers to these questions are going to be different, and that everybody does have something to share and learn from. Everybody's got a secret. Toniko, thank you so much for sharing yours.
Yeah, no problem. I hope you guys, do good things with my deep, dark secret.
Yes.
My gift to you.
What a gift! What a gift! That shit's hard to. That it is like. I don't think that. I don't know. With interviews, animation interviews, so much that doesn't get talked about is just kind of the internal struggles. And
hell yeah.
And hopefully
I like that stuff.
Yeah, that's the good stuff. Toniko, if you were to say one single word, you only get one word, and then I'm gonna stop this stream. It can be any word, but I'm clicking the button as soon as you say it.
Oh my god. Oh, I said it.
God.